rights to personal freedoms and government intrusions. Listen here Sunday nights at 9.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
I love this story. I had one right near where I grew up.
What is it?
It's a grocery store that is really sticking it to Walmart. No, not Amazon. After they bought Whole Foods. No. Not glamorous, just brutally efficient. Aldi.
Oh.
Aldi versus Walmart. Any supermarket, as Mark Perry writes over at Carpe Diem blog, any supermarket that can outcompete Walmart on price by 18% has to be doing something right. Yeah, they are. And CNN did a long piece on how Aldi does it.
I've always wanted to know, so tell me.
Number of things. Aldi expects its customers to return carts to the store after each shopping trip. They don't have runners. Employs several key design details to maximize efficiency at checkout on its products. Barcodes are supersized or printed on multiple sides to speed up the scanning process. After groceries are rung up, nowhere for them to linger. Cashier drops them directly into the shopping cart. Doesn't waste time bagging groceries, moving people along. They keep real estate and labor costs down, too. Walmart's Supercenter averages about 178,000 square feet. Costco, 145,000.
All these stores are tiny.
12,000.
Yeah.
12,000 square feet, small box stores. Aldi employees are cross-trained to perform every function. It's not a overwrought division of labor. Their duties are streamlined. Aldi displays products in their original cardboard shipping boxes rather than stacking them individually to save employees time stocking shelves. Most stores don't list their phone numbers publicly because Aldi doesn't want its workers to spend time answering calls.
Oh.
A single Aldi may have only 3 to 5 employees in the store at any given time, and maybe only 15 to 20 on the payroll. So they pay, according to Aldi, their workers industry average, but they save on overall labor costs by having fewer of them. With 5 or 6 super wide aisles, Aldi only stocks around 1,400 items compared to 40,000 at traditional supermarkets, more than 100,000 items at Walmart. All of the cost savings, these little things that don't sound like much, number one, are passed on to consumers. Aldi claims its prices are up to 50% cheaper than traditional supermarkets. And independent analysis by Wolf Research shows its prices are 15% cheaper than Walmart in markets like Houston and Chicago. This is capitalism, creative destruction. Not that they're destroying Walmart or Amazon / Whole Foods, but they're outcompeting them. And market share, providing consumer choice, providing consumers the opportunity to buy on price. And it's stories like this that provide a little bit of historical context. And we need to make the arguments about free markets in this country, given the research we know about attitudes, particularly of younger people, millennials, towards free markets, beneficial exchanges of a voluntary nature between consenting adults. You like your Airbnb? Sure you do, capitalism. You like your Uber? Sure you do. Or your Lyft? Sure you do, capitalism. You like, for middle to lower middle income families, you like your Aldi? Sure you do, capitalism. And it's also one of the things to remember, the creative destruction competition. Of the Fortune 500 companies in 1955, how many do you think today are still Fortune 500 companies? 500 companies in 1955 that comprise the Fortune 500. How many are still in the Fortune 500? Some, 50 or 60 years later, 65 years later. 10%, 52.
Wow.
That's what happens in a dynamic economy. You think the big guy on the block right now will be the big guy on the block forever. I'm sure American Motors thought that in 1955. Not so much anymore, is it? Have to make the arguments in defense of free markets if you want to continue to enjoy the benefits of them. And for more on this topic, couldn't think of a better person. He is Jonathan Hoenig, Mr. Capitalist Pig. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, great to be with you. A masterful argument, and congratulations on your speech. I understand that the Heartland Institute was very well regarded, sold-out house, caught some of the social media images. So I know you, Amy, some of your listeners make this argument or trying to make this argument worldwide these days. And your example about Aldi and Walmart, I think, is apropos of so many others that really demonstrate the case for capitalism.
Well, thank you very much. Now, the flip side of that is I saw this story on Market Watch. Apple earnings at risk of a 29% hit if China retaliates to the Huawei hit at the hands of the U.S. government, according to Goldman Sachs. Well, if Apple and Tim Cook are going to take a 30% hit, boy, that's really attractive. I may actually change my view on tariffs and hammering Huawei if Apple's going to pay a price.
Well, Dan, I know you're being a little facetious because the reality is we're all paying a price. Look, take the politics out of it. The market is down about 4% this year, and you talk to any CEO, any economist, any investor, they'll tell you that the trade war, we were told trade wars were quick, easy to win, and now it has turned into a year-plus, very expensive battle. And I have to tell you, Dan, that the president's press conference yesterday in which he enlisted another $12 billion bailout for the farmers, kind of quipping at the same time that everyone's coming to him for money, I don't think put a lot of confidence in those who've been most affected. Everyone from farmers to lobster exporters to whiskey exporters to even washing machine purchasers here at home are paying more for the same goods. Look, we tried this in 2002. George Bush, elder, put steel tariffs on. It cost 200,000 jobs in just the first year. So I think that's the real fear now, Dan and Amy, is that we're moving away from that free market competition towards a managed economy, and you're seeing it in the market, you're seeing it in the economy, and it's just the beginning.
Well, and that's the thing, though. One is present. Are there any scheduled talks for him or anybody to meet with Chinese leaders to try and solve this tariff war?
As the president has presented, not until the G7, which is fine from a political standpoint, folks. But imagine you are a farmer. You're trying to plan your business, think long term, something like crops, which takes months and months, to grow and to plan and to market. How can one even pretend to plan long term as a business person when so much of this about your cost basis is known? And keep in mind, guys, when we're arguing against Democrats for extra taxes, Democrats will often say, "Oh, it's another 1%, 5%." The businessman, rich business people can affect that. Tariffs are taxes. Somebody's got to tell the president once again. He's crowing about his $100 billion in tariffs that we're taking in. He's taking that in from Americans who are paying those taxes. It's having a negative impact on the economy, and that's the top of mind for so many economists and investors on Wall Street right now.
Now, this week we got arguably some good news. The Fed is indicated that there's going to be no interest rate moves for some time, even if we continue to see decent to robust GDP growth. Is that your take on it? Good news?
Yeah, well, it's definitely news, Dan, and it's such a change from even 9 months ago when we were expecting a much stronger economy and thus higher interest rates. 2, 3, 4 interest rates had been forecast, and we've seen this dramatic change. So, yeah, it looks like lower interest rates, even sharply lower interest rates, are here in the cards. Great for people who are borrowing money, of course, but it's a broader indication of a more worrisome trend, and that is a slowing economy. And generally, if we saw the economy expanding, you'd see a demand for credit, interest rates rising, at least moderately. We're not seeing that. The Federal Reserve isn't seeing that. So that kind of adds to the wall of worries now on top of the trade war that maybe the economy, which has been strong, unemployment, so much of the data is terrific, but we're always looking for that canary in the coal mine, and these interest rates that are low and seemingly going lower is one indication that the economy is starting to slow.
How concerned are you about government spend? And I want to be specific here because this came up this week after all of the Mueller report, impeachment talk. Trump sort of suspended a meeting he was to have with legislative leaders about a $2 trillion infrastructure bill. We know from the shovel-ready $800 million, $800 billion worth of shovel-ready projects a decade ago that they were not shovel-ready, and that most of that money was pork-barreled for purposes that have nothing to do with improving service transportation and thus improving the flow of commerce or increasing safety for American citizens. Less than 4% of the $800 billion of the Obama stimulus plan actually went to the infrastructure projects that are always advertised: rail, surface, airports. Less than 4% of that. And so you have the potential for doubling down on that sort of boondoggle when you have Democrats and Republicans agreeing to do $2 trillion worth of infrastructure, just like you have in Springfield here, $41 billion infrastructure gambit that Governor Jelly Belly is proposing, and it's the same sort of thing. So talk to me about big infrastructure projects that generate so much bipartisan support and what they actually produce in terms of value for the taxpayer, for the American family.
Oh, Dan, you hit the nail on the head, and that's what's so frightening. Look, as you said a decade ago, the Republicans were opposition to that big government spending. They opposed that Obama stimulus program, which, as you demonstrated, and even ultimately, as President Obama admitted, really wasn't all that it's cracked up to promise. You know, remember back then, Nancy Pelosi told us about every dollar you spend in infrastructure comes back in 2, 3, and 4. At times, its value. In reality, government spending at this time is destructive, is wasteful, and it doesn't actually eliminate the real problem, Dan, which isn't infrastructure, which is government spending. In fact, it just encourages it by giving more pork barrel projects, as you said, to give away. It's destructive, and the fact that there's really no opposition to this big government spending right now on either side of the aisle, I think, has to give every investor and every economist some pause these days. And you don't have to look even too far into history. Look, Japan, if you can look back at the tape, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, it was Japan, we were told, that was going to take over the economy and dominate America's economy. Well, their managed economy went bust, and Dan, they've spent the last 30 years doing exactly that. Big government infrastructure projects. It's left them with the biggest government debt in the world and a moribund economy. We're headed down the same direction if we continue on this path.
He is the Capitalist Pig, Jonathan Hoenig, founding member of the Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund, Fox News contributor, and pick up his new book, A New Textbook for Americanism, The Politics of Ayn Rand. Jonathan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Always. Have a great weekend.
Take care.